You're started.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the West Haven Subcommittee of the MARB. It is Thursday, March 28th, and the time is 10:02. And I don't have. The only opening remarks is that I won't be able to run this meeting longer than the 12 o'clock mark because both Simon and I have some other meetings that we need to attend to after, but I don't think that we're going to need that extra time. I do have a revision that I just noticed this morning in the approval of the minutes. It does not have the right date on the minutes. It is the right on the minutes, but it's not right on the agenda. So with that, I'll move forward with the approval of the minutes, and that should have been February the 6th, and those minutes have been included in your packet. Does anybody have any questions or discussions, or can I get a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Susan, was that you?
No, that was me.
Oh, thank you, Anne.
I'll
Thank
second.
Thank you, Tom. All right, all in favor? Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Oh, hi, Mr. White. Mr. White, do you want to join in the approval of the minutes? Or he's still coming in? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Aye.
Aye, yes. Okay. All right, I hear all in favor. The minutes have been approved. All right, the next item on the agenda is review and some discussion. There is no possible action. So it says possible action. There is no possible action today. We're really just getting a first overview of the mayor's budget. And oh, Mayor, you're echoing me again. I'm going to put you on mute. And this would give the city of West Haven and the mayor an opportunity to give us all the quick highlights of her budget, as she did hand that over to City Council last week. And so, Mayor, I'm going to turn this over to you to fill us in.
Okay, am I echoing still? I am?
Yes.
Okay, Bob White's saying yes. Kim and Ron are saying no.
That's because I went on mute.
Kim was echoing as well.
Okay, so am I good to go is my question.
Yeah, as long as everyone's on mute, you'll be fine.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I thought, is it okay if I just deviate? I just wanted to give a personnel update before I run into where we stand with the budget, because it actually rolls. It's actually a talking point in the budget. Everybody okay with that?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right. So as you know, last we met, we had all of those critical openings that we were working on, and I had let you know that we worked with the union, did a little, they were very collaborative. We did some reconstructing and modernizing of the job descriptions, and we cast a wide net out there to advertise, to recruit. And I want to give you an update of all the hires we made, which I'm really happy about. We have now hired and remember in West Haven in our charter, it's called personnel. Still, the archaic language is not called human resources. So we have hired a personnel director, a personnel generalist, emergency response director, our risk manager. We've hired a payroll manager, which is really exciting, finally, because we know that's critical. We've hired a procurement manager. We've hired a senior accountant, and I'm happy to report that I made an offer to a finance director who has accepted. We're going through the background checks and references, which I'm sure will be fine. So that's why I'm not saying the person's name right now, but we did make that offer and accepted. And then we made a number of like promotions in Public Works to open up new positions. So, so we're moving along. We hired about 15 critical positions. We still have some to go. The only one that was disappointing was the water pollution control plant superintendent. That's a real critical area, and that has been a challenge for us because you need to be a licensed for as part of that role. And as you may know, there's very few of those in the state. They demand a very high salary. We did have a good candidate that we found with the credentials. We spent a lot of time interviewing him, and then and checked his references, and then at the end of the day, he declined. So we're back at the drawing board for that one, and that is that, along with several other positions, are our focus. So just want to give you the update. So 4 of those positions are critical in finance, which is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions on any of that? Okay. So I thought for the budget, so yes, I presented my budget last week to the City Council. Now they have scheduled a public hearing, which is next Thursday, April 4th, and we have our council liaison, Brian, there with us. I see has joined. And the council will be meeting with department heads. So I just want to let you, and you know, weighing in and making changes as they see fit. Our council needs 9 votes to make any changes to the mayor's budget. And then, hang on one second. David just joined us, so he's got to. We're sorry. We're getting organized. Okay. It's been a busy week for us. We have the auditors here. We had a press conference yesterday. We have a budget that was presented. So thanks for your patience. So the City Council's deadline for approving the budget is May 2nd. So they will continue to work on it. The steps that I've taken to date this time around is we gave a form to all our department heads to complete for their budget. We asked them to focus on the expenses. You know, where can we maybe be more efficient in our operations? Is there any expenses that we can take down? But also with a focus on driving revenue. I then met with all the department heads, and from those conversations and that documentation created the budget. So if you will allow me to, I thought I would just read off what I read to the council as the highlights from the budget, because I know there's a lot of details in it. So it'll take a few minutes. So bear with me. Okay, so I explained to the council the process that we went through, and what your role is for the new council members, to let them know that you will also, on a parallel track, be looking at the budget as well and making your providing your input. And then I talked about the 5-year plan that was approved. So the 5-year plan, as you remember, had a 2.4 mil rate increase in it for this budget year. So really, I used that as our jumping off point, because that is what was approved for fiscal year 25. And my goal was to take that mill rate down the best I could, because 2.4 is a high jump for a high mill rate city, without cutting services and without, but still contributing towards the general fund and still looking at our internal service fund and also our liabilities. So those were my focuses, and I think we're in a good place with some of the efforts that we made and what's included in this budget. So what's included in the budget is what I just talked about, which was the filling the vacancies. I think with our aggressive approach towards talented recruitment, we've already begun to eliminate some of the high-priced consultants that we had in here. We had a lot of workers from Robert Half here, and we were paying them twice the hourly salary to make up for these vacancies. So I know sometimes people, I don't want to speak for the prior administration, but sometimes you think if you have these vacancies, you're going to save money. It's really more detrimental than it's beneficial, because you're paying consultants, you have significant overtime, and you don't have employees vested in those roles. So I think by filling these roles, it's really going to contribute towards a more responsible budget. So we're already eliminating some of these Robert Half employees, although we thank them very much. And this is going to help with overtime. We also I eliminated a few positions in this budget, some that were in the role, that's always difficult, some that were vacant positions that were, I did not feel were necessary. But at the same time, to be transparent, I created a couple of new roles so that it was a bit of a wash. But I think our city has fallen short in the past in our outreach to our youth and our outreach, our social work, and the outreach for our veterans. So added something to the budget where I took away. The budget also proposes a significant cut to our outside legal services. We were spending an extraordinary amount, and yes, we have a lot of cases, but everything was going out, and everything, the cases are just twisting in the wind. There's not a lot of resolution. We got to resolve some of these cases, get them off the books, but stop paying, these outside attorneys for this, these projects these cases that don't seem to come to fruition. We also anticipate a favorable reduction in our electrical and our energy costs as a result of we are going to go back out to bid for our energy. And we're going to do that through an RFP and a consultant that will help us to do that. And the feedback we're getting is we're going to be able to reduce that. And that will come into effect December 2024. But we also have some aggressive plans for renewable energy, which I think will contribute towards the electrical. We were also able to take down the fuel expense because it looked like we were double budgeting. We weren't double paying. But for example, in our under Public Works, our mechanics and our fuel guys, there was a big line item, about $500,000 for fuel, because that is what they were spending on fuel. But other departments also were budgeting for fuel, but those departments really pay back into the fuel account. So I think we were budgeting in some places twice for the same product. So we were able to restructure that on fuel. That will save money. I've included the anticipation of city properties that are not functioning nor revenue producing. That is, I know that's a one-time revenue item, but I think that will help with our offset our non-reoccurring. We're going to be pursuing out-of-state license plates. We had an influx, as many did in Connecticut, of out-of-state residents that moved to West Haven, a significant amount. And we welcome people to our city, but we also want them to pay their taxes. So we have met with a company that is going to help us round up those out-of-state license plates and have them register their cars if they live here in West Haven. This budget also includes cost sharing expenses. So for example, I met with the Housing Authority and we have a lot of the same services. So we agreed, for example, on our senior transportation to share the cost rather than us both paying the cost. So we tried to negotiate some cost sharing in the budget. The budget also includes a new revenue line item for blight. We have significant blight in the city. I actually had a press conference on it yesterday, and we were not in a position to assess or collect blight fines because we didn't have the legal structure in place to do so. So I have formed a blight task force that consists of our police, our fire, our health, our legal team, our building team, and our zoning and our blight officers. And we came up with a program that will now allow us to go out and address the blight and collect fees for those that are violators. But we also, I know I'm getting a little into the weeds, but just giving you an idea of where some of this revenue is coming from. Infractions were handled by our police in the past. Blight infractions are, let's say you have a couch on the curb. Legally, before the blight officer was not responsible for that, the police were responsible for that, and that's just not a good use of their time, especially when we know we have challenges with personnel. So we were able to take that function away from police, give it to our blight officer, right? That frees up their time, but it's also going to allow our blight officer to go out there and find people who are violators. We also have a new program that we're going to be implementing on non-resident landlord registration program. This is actually a bill that's in front of the General Assembly, but whether this bill passes or not, we're still going to do it. We have a problem with absentee landlords. And so we're going to require landlords to register a live person and number. So what's happening is a lot of these landlords hide behind an LLC and we can't find them. So that's not only going to help us with blight, but that's really critical for our fire department, our fire marshals, and our police. So we're going to require them to register. If they don't register, it's a $500 fine. We could actually charge them up to $1,000. So we're implementing that program, which will drive revenue as well. We know that our paid parking program has worked well, so we've identified new locations for paid parking from non-residents that come to the city. We've talked in the past, I know I talked to you about the economic development by changing our building department fee structure and adding new software for ease of business and tracking. We brought up those fees a little bit. We also have a modest investment into marketing. So I always think of marketing not as an expense, as an investment, because we have had zero marketing in the city of West Haven and we really need to compete for business. And that's a small amount. That's $50,000. You know, marketing is very expensive. So not sure what we could buy, but just kind of introducing the program to everybody. I also did some investments in paving and curb cuts. Our education system, as you know, in the 5-year plan was at 1.5 million. They asked for 2 million and I supported that 2 million request. We have not given an increase to our Board of Education locally since 2015 or 16. And just felt, you know, I wanted to demonstrate that, you know, our commitment to the children across the city. And I think given the other changes we're making in the budget that we are in a position to do that. We know about the police, right? Personnel-based salary is included in this budget. And then Allentown, so that's the one district, as you know, that we have responsibility over their budget. We were able to work with the chief and the firefighters there on their capital expenses with respect to their trucks and their equipment, and took down those capital expenses. And as a result, we were able to lower the mill rate slightly in Allentown while still slightly investing in their pension liability. So I thought Allentown was a win-win all over. And then our sewer operating fund, you know, water pollution control, as I continue to mention, is our critical area. That has significant improvements to infrastructure that are needed. So the sewer operating fund raises the fee. That's not a tax, that's a fee, $15 per household to help pay for some of that infrastructure. And then, you know, as far as our internal service fund, our liabilities, I'm going to let David you know, give just some high level talking points on that, because we were very focused on addressing our internal service fund. We wanted to make sure one of the MARB criteria, as you know, is to make sure we have 5% in our general fund balance over our operating budget. That is very important to us. We want to demonstrate our road to financial stability. So we focused on that as well. So I know I talk a lot. I'm just going to pause for a moment and I'm going to mute myself so I can turn it over to David and he could just talk a little bit about the liability investments, if that's okay. Wait, let me mute myself.
Yes, please.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Oh, shoot. Turn off your speakers. So there, bottom right. Hello?
We can hear you.
It's got an echo.
I
don't know who it's echoing against. Hold on. Let me see.
It's the mayor's. She's trying to get her speaker turned on.
Got it.
Yeah, there's bottom right of your screen. Can't seem to get that off, so let's step out for a minute. Is that better?
He's gonna go. Yeah,
No more echo, I hope.
No, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I couldn't hear myself, so I guess it was. You know what? My speakers are off, so I can't hear you. There we go. So on the internal service fund, as you know, that's been a concern for us all over the last few years. I included in your packet, it was the last page to the budget documents that we provided, how we're doing there, starting with the 22 audit, the activities that we did in 23 to build up that fund, and what has happened thus far in 24, as well as our projections through the next few years, showing that we will be fully funded in all of our internal service funds, as we discussed together within 5 years, about a year ago. So that's moving along. OPEB, while it's really a paltry amount, we are scheduling increased contributions to that. You know, coming off of zero, it's not hard to do, but we are planning for that. We feel like funding our pensions at the ADAC plus is probably a better way to go first. Let's get those up to snuff, and then we'll be able to focus more of those dollars towards the OPEB. So that's our plan so far as those funds. If there's any other questions on those things, or did I miss anything?
A question, David. Does the budget include funding for the police pension that is going to arbitration?
It does not. When we present the 5-year plan from a conservative standpoint, we feel like we ought to include those costs so that, you know, so that's what we're planning to do. Oh, by the way, we're starting work on the 5-year plan next week. So you'll have that. We're shooting for the end of April for you to have our first cut of the 5-year plan, you know, based on the mayor's proposal for the budget.
The other question has to do with the 22 audit said that your police pension was 73% funded, and it's probably dipped. You know, that since you paid off the bonds, that may not be a requirement to get to 100%, but seems to me to be good practice.
Yes.
What is in this budget? What are you doing to close that gap?
Yes.
I think
so
ADAC is enough.
Yeah, so we did do a slight increase to the ADAC. Now, the ADAC is recalculated every couple of years,
Right.
and was recalculated since the 22 audit. So it does reflect the need to fund at a faster rate. I believe we're looking at I believe we're looking at a 10-year funding. You know, it's quite a substantial amount of money, and it's just impossible for me to fund it in a year or two. So, and we have reduced our discount rate, which also drives up the ADAC, as you all know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What level did it change for the discount rate, David?
We're down to 6.9 all around. I think we were in like this. We were above 7 at one time, but we've kind of been sneaking it down.
Okay, and when we get to the 5-year plan, we will provide the new pension valuation information
Yes.
and OPEB too.
Yes.
Okay. One other question before I let Tom, who is waiting in the sideline. I thought that when I look at the OPEB funding that you noted, I thought that had started years prior, not just in 24. I thought it was already in the budget.
Oh, yeah, I might have put the wrong number there. I think, but it was smaller than what we're doing now.
I thought
Yeah,
we
the
we
thing
had
is that
already planned for 23.
Yeah, I'll go back and check, and we would have accrued it. The
Yeah.
problem is that I think it's sitting in an adjusting journal entry, and when I went and looked at the ledger, it was 0.
Yes.
So sorry
Okay.
about that. But
No,
I think you're right. I think there's like $150,000 or something like that we accrued, set aside. Well,
Mhm.
we will accrue,
okay, good. Yep.
but that's good news. That will have been expensed in 23.
Tom Hamilton, over to you. Can't hear you, Tom. Sorry. You're on
Sorry,
mute.
is that better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so David, I saw the last page of the budget document, and I'm, think that extinguishing the internal service fund deficit over a 5-year period makes sense, and so I'm in support of that. My concern was when I looked at the budget itself on page 104, and I'm trying to bring it up, but
Hold on, I'm gonna go grab my budget book.
okay. Reason I can't get to it. So this was actually page 104 of the PDF we had. So it may be, a slightly different
Oh.
page in your
What's it look like?
document. Well, it's the section where you've got the line items on employee benefits. So it's where you had the workers' comp. And my concern is the workers' comp line was showing that you spent, I believe, and I don't have it up in front of me because I can't seem to minimize my screen here for some reason. But in any event, I believe you had spent 3.6 million last year, and you were projecting to spend about 3.5 million this year, but the budget next year only showed 2.4 million as a proposed budget for next year, if I have the numbers correct. And so that concerns me. I mean, I'm wondering, where is the additional money such that you expect to, whittle down the shortfall in the internal service fund by 700,000 if, to me, it looks like the workers' comp is back down to the lower budgeted level again.
Yeah, so the $3.6 million represents an additional $1 million over our run rate on the expenses for that year. So that was why you're seeing additional funding in 23. In 24, we pulled money from a different, not from the general fund, we pulled it from the ARPA fund. And so you won't see that reflected in the budget you're looking at, but it is in the internal service fund.
So your run rate is not 3.6 million or 3.5 million?
No, it's close. It's the mid 2 millions.
Okay, and then where is the additional money to provide that $700,000?
It's in the same line item. I just don't have separate line items.
Okay.
Oh, we're back to 2.4. Yeah. I'll have to do a little more research on that.
Okay. I mean, we don't have to, that's just an area I've got some concern over, obviously. So if you
maybe I misspoke, but let me go back and look at our run rate one more time.
Okay, if you can, we'll get back
Absolutely.
to this
Absolutely.
at some point anyway. Okay.
No, it's good input.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
What? Yeah.
No questions is good, or you haven't had a chance to look at the details yet?
See, Mr.
Correct.
White has his hand up. His
If I
physical hand.
could,
Yes.
on that page, I was just looking at it. it looked like there was a substantial increase in police pension for 25.
That's correct.
And the mayor actually went higher. What is, I think that's good. What
Is this the
is-
page? Is this the page you're referring to?
It is.
Thank you.
Page
Yeah.
104 on the 99 on the budget and 104 on the
Yeah, Mr. White, that is the topic you and I discussed a minute or two ago. We are funding the pension at the ADAC plus. We've actually I think the ADAC was about trying to look for it here. Yeah, the ADAC was 4787, and the mayor we rounded that to 5 million to show we were going to do better than the ADAC in this budget year.
Okay, and that's what that was. Okay.
Yes,
and
that's
that
the
was
increase.
because the jump is because, I mean, if you're only putting in 300,000 over the ADAC, is that because the ADAC was increased? I thought.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at 23, it was 2.3 million. It went to 4 million in 24 in the budget, and we're going to fund that. And then the ADAC went up to 4787. That's because of the $22 million we lost in investments in 22.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was done. I didn't know
Correct.
if it had caught up or that
Right.
was to come. Okay. Thank you.
And we just thought we'd put a little bit more in there. It felt like we could afford that this year or next year. Sorry.
Just a follow-up on that, David, in terms of the ADAC, that's an updated number from the pension actuary?
Yes.
The 4.7 million was updated for next year's budget, correct?
That's correct. I went in, I wanted to make sure I had the right number for the budget, and I asked her for a letter and she gave it to me.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Susan.
We had a presentation, I think in December, about very expensive work upcoming at the Water Pollution Control Authority plant. And will we get updates for that when we get the 5-year capital plan update? Because
So the
it's
5-year
a mix
capital-
of loans and capital dollars.
Correct. And there is a significant change that the 5-year capital plan is at the back of the
Yes,
document that we provided.
Mhm,
And
I
the
saw that.
details to the water pollution piece of it are on the document page 126 at the top.
I saw that. So I didn't do a comparison to see how it might have changed from what we saw back in November, December.
It is significant. Our construction activity is pulled forward a little bit based on the estimates from Abdul. There is now money in there to rebuild the incinerator because that's the path that the commission is suggesting as we go in here. If you might remember, we had agreed to a 5-year plan that would fund by not funding a third party building their own facility there.
Thank you.
And if I could just add to that, we built in the rebuild of the incinerator. However, we are awaiting DEEP's permit for us to be able to do that because the incinerator was turned off. So we asked for an extension. If for some reason they say that we can't do that, then we have to continue to transport our sledge out of here. If they say we could do it, then we will have to make that investment. So the main investments there are the incinerator, the odor control, and that outfall pipe. That's going to be, upwards of $70 million. We're also putting that on our list for our federal delegation since the request for the wants is open, but also put in an application to FEMA and then using the Clean Water Fund. So you know, we're trying a lot of avenues for that. So it's such a big nut that, you know, it's just unfortunate. We have to continue to build that in.
So, David, when we look at page 126 and the 5-year capital plan, and I'm looking at the water pollution control and all of those line items together. So collectively in 26, there's a major jump in number of
Yes.
areas. So I guess it would be helpful of how much is this thing going to cost, and do we really have a plan or a quote? Because I know initially when we spoke about this, and I know it's maybe less than 6 months ago, that we still didn't know what avenue you were going to go down with
Right.
with this
Yeah,
project.
and this just reflects what the commission has requested. That doesn't mean it's going to be where it landed. Another huge increase, I believe, is that the outfall reconstruction was pulled forward. I'm not looking at them next to each other, but the outfall reconstruction has been pulled forward. But most of that, we're hoping to get we have applied for a FEMA grant. We have not gotten approval yet. The construction phase on the sewer rehabilitation section there, the ongoing pump station upgrades, is more aggressive as well.
Yeah.
That you were getting into those construction projects now, they're starting to ramp up. And of course, once they get started, they don't stop. They finish them.
Right.
But one thing we have done, the auditors has made a recommendation and we jumped on it, was we're attempting to draw down our funds on a more regular basis, which will protect our cash flow.
Okay, thank you.
And
And so I'm assuming then once we get your 5-year plan with the debt, that we'll be able to see if there's a spike in that. I'm looking at that detail, and then I see that a lot of it is showing that we're going to bond fund for it.
Yeah, I haven't submitted this to Bill yet to get his projection on that, and but yes, it's kind of scary to me too how much we might need to borrow over the next few years.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mr. Hamilton, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, David, I'm interested in getting a little more information on the liability insurance line, and do you have a risk manager now on board or not?
Yeah. Yes, we do, and I think he's doing a really good job. You can't stop accidents from happening, but you can make sure that people get trained not to get in accidents, and don't do things that would cause litigation. And we're working towards bidding out everything this year.
Okay. What I'm interested, I noticed your budget's gone from 600,000 to 1,344,000. I think, frankly, you were probably underinsured. I think based on the theft from a few years ago, you didn't have as much insurance there as perhaps would have been advisable. But what I'd like really is sort of an overall picture of what the city's philosophy and plan is with respect to risk management. So in other words, what level of self-insurance are you taking on versus what compared to, what you're insuring, and then what are the various lines of insurance coverage you have, property insurance and general liability, do you have police professional and public officials insurance, so on and so forth. So I kind of like an overall picture of where you stand with respect to risk management and how you get to this number of 1,344,000. It doesn't look like it's out of line to me. It's probably, right on the mark, but I just want to better understand, what's in there and how you get there.
So as you know, yeah, the answer is yes. Obviously, we can get that for you. And a couple of comments. The increase represents funding the internal service fund because everything from the insurance passes through. That's the general liability part. So which is where part of our commitment to do that. Secondly, we do have criminal insurance. Our deductible in place at the time of the theft was $100,000, and it's multi-million-dollar worth of insurance, which may or may not. We could argue the merits of whether or not. I think it was the most we could get, frankly. Whether or not we're going to get, and we've discussed this previously, that we are applying to get payment from the insurance company for the theft. That is still an open item. We've not gotten that, but they are. And when we bid out this policy, they were the only company willing to take us. So we've renewed that policy. We've just renewed our policy with them. It cost us twice as much, and they doubled the deductible. But we saw that as a good sign that they still wanted to work with us, and we felt it was important to continue the policy. By the way, the new policy is $15,000 per year, so it's not a hugely expensive policy.
One other question to piggyback off of that comment. You do have cyber now, correct?
Absolutely. We've had cyber in place since before I got here.
So if you could have your new risk manager, put together, a one-page kind of summary that outlines,
Yep.
What policies are in place, what the deductibles are on each policy, what the limits are on each policy, what the premium is on each policy. I think that would, pretty much be what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I haven't asked him for it, but I think he probably has it. So we'll get that definitely, and I'll make sure he's got all these pieces of data on it.
And we could also add to that, what are we doing internally with new policies to help bring that down?
Oh, you know what? I had one other question, or actually a comment, recommendation. I don't remember, and I'm not even sure if it still is in existence, but I suspect it probably is, that there was a consortium of municipalities that were bidding their employee life insurance as a group. And I don't remember if West Haven was part of that group or not, but if not, that would certainly be something to look into. There were, quite a number of the larger cities were involved in that consortium. Norwalk was in it, Bridgeport, I believe, was in it. And I think there were about 30 different municipalities that were in it at one point. And so you might want to just take a look at that and see when was the last time you bid out life insurance, and would it be appropriate to go out to bid, and would that consortium be a one avenue to do that? Because life insurance you can actually save quite a bit of money. I mean, it's not a huge ticket item in your budget, but it's not unusual if you haven't gone out to bid to find, oh, well, we can cut the price in half. So.
Yeah. You don't happen to remember which company they went with when they did that, by any chance?
I don't remember which company, but I believe Siegel was the consultant who was doing the work on it. So again, my information is several years old now at this point. Maybe the whole thing has fallen apart, but you could reach out to Siegel.
Absolutely. I believe
And
we've worked
we
with-
could reach out to CCM too. They're probably knowledgeable, and maybe Scrog.
Yep.
Mr. White.
Yes, thanks. Moving on a little bit from these funds. We've talked from time to time on proposals to help you with recruitment and retention. And, you know, the kerfuffle with the police, I think, highlights the notion of addressing some of these issues piecemeal. The board approved a contract with the police, for example, with a embedded $10,000 raise. Then there's an interim attempt at an interim change to increase pension, and you know, we've talked that out, and that'll be up to the arbitrators. But the point is, can we see a plan for doing that and the cost that it might be, so that we're not dealing with it, oh, I've got an idea to do it, and then let's add that. So if we just looked at it, something, you know, that makes sense to you and you know, generally the public service chiefs, so that we can look at it at this, you know, all at the same time.
Thank you for that. Are you asking specifically for police or across the board?
I guess the big items, you know, police, fire, you know, the ones that you have the biggest problem and would cost the most. I mean, you don't have to do it everyone, you know, everywhere, use your judgment, but certainly police and fire and you know, EMP or something like that.
I know that, you know, we met last week with the police chief and the commissioners to talk about, because that was one of the asks as part of the arbitration, to put together the overall, what's the overall plan? How do all the pieces fit in? So that's underway, and then certainly can talk to the fire departments about that.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to piggyback off of Mr. White's comment, and in that we just recently also approved large increases to the teacher's contract. Is there other groups of folks besides the police, fire? We just, I think, fixed education for 3 years. That could resurrect to be additional. Now, we didn't know that the police was going to come forward requesting additional funds from the pension side when literally the year before we had made the increase to the base. So if there are others percolating out there or need attention, I think that would be really important for us to know. Those group of folks or union workers that could also be feeling like they're underpaid.
Yes, everybody here feels they're underpaid. So it's you know, it's a common denominator, and I think we're trying to adjust where we can. You know, you saw on some of those appointments that are mayor appointments, we were able to get a council approval for, you know, increase in some of those critical positions. You know, for example, that water pollution control superintendent that I mentioned that I offered the job to, we pay $121. The going rate's more like $145, $150. So he said the salary just doesn't, you know, match what the credentials are for that position. So we're trying to make those adjustments where we can. But to your point about large groups, the 681 contract, let me just back up for a second on police pension. I think, you know, in hindsight, and again, I wasn't here, but, you know, the subcommittee clearly should have been brought on board much earlier in the process, because they had been negotiating that pension component, I think, on a parallel track. I think maybe everybody wasn't aware of that. And we're seeing, you know, some of the results of that. The 681 contract, the dispatcher's contract, is going to become before you and the full MARB. David has put funding in the contingency. We don't put increase. Let me back up for a second. I'm all over the board. We budget the positions at top step. We put in contingency what we think might be an appropriate increase based on negotiations. We don't put that in the budget because they're negotiations, right? So you want to do the right thing, but you can't tip your hand in the negotiation. So we're cognizant of it all and trying to work on recruitment, retention, and what large groups of employees we need to address.
Thank you. Any other questions from the team?
So I guess I should, in the vein of that last, the 1103 contract will be coming up. It expires the end of this fiscal year. So you all know that.
Is it in negotiation now, or you're going to be bringing it, you'll be bringing that forward? It would be best if we get that information sooner rather than later for the
I
MARB.
can speak to that, but I'm not aware that anything has started on that.
No, the negotiations haven't started.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Hamilton.
Kim, I have a question. Yeah, so on elderly services, is this the senior center? I'm not quite sure what elderly services is.
I keep turning my mic off. Yes, that is the senior center.
Sorry, yes, that is the senior center.
It looks like you added one position here. Is that right? I think you added one position. Can you just tell us what the what are the basic reasons for adding a position there? What are the duties that you see and so forth?
So that position is going to be a combination of outreach to provide information and resources for our elderly community, community outreach, but also activities. Typically, those positions are separate, but we weren't able to, the department manager asked for both positions, and we really can't do that at this time. So we're creating a position where that person will be, they're going to kind of be the liaison to the community. So there's a lot of resources that are available to the elderly through state, federal, and local programs, but we need to communicate them to help them. So it's gonna be an outreach person. We also added a position to the youth services. Similar, I think we've fallen a little short there in outreach to our youth, and we know we need to engage our youth and provide services, and we need a coordinator to do that. We have nobody who does that currently.
Okay. Question, or I guess maybe a comment. I don't know. I'm looking at your salaries and they're all pretty modest. But one thing I've seen some communities do is to sort of spin off the senior center operation to a 501c3, and there can be some advantages to that. Sometimes, the salary structure, again, your salaries are pretty modest, so I'm not sure there'd be a lot of salary savings, but sometimes you have a little more flexibility as a 501c3 than you might as a direct municipal department. 501c3 might have some success in raising some outside funds to help support programs and so on. So I just throw it out as an idea that you put away in the filing cabinet, and maybe it's something you want to consider, maybe it isn't. So.
That is a good idea. Milford does that. Milford has a very robust program, and I just appointed the head of the Milford program. Her name is Lenora, but she lives in West Haven, to our new aging board. So we have an aging board, we have a disability board, boards that have been kind of defunct for several years. So we're growing those. And she actually runs the nonprofit senior center over in Milford and has been contributing some ideas. So it's certainly worth a look.
David, I would suggest that you do bring Bill Lindsay in to take a look at the capital 5-year plan. I did find it on page 127 in some of the large increases that you're going to be looking for funding on in bond funds, and majority of them falling into the water pollution area with some large spikes in 26 and 27. And the overall debt service, can you handle those increases, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
that's definitely on my list.
thank you. That definitely will be important. I would also be looking for, I don't think I didn't locate it as of yet. Is there a list in here of all of the new positions that have new positions that would have been added, and then maybe the restructure? Usually you give us that document probably with the 5-year plan. And so some would be new positions that you no longer are going to utilize or repurposed. And then secondly, that you're going to, eliminate because it was a restructure.
Yeah, this plan was, the recommended budget. We're really
Sure.
not coming before you to get approval at this time, and but that would definitely be part of our presentation.
Perfect.
Yeah, we should do that anyway.
Right.
Yeah, that's a standard document that we receive. In addition, the assumptions, like everything that you're building to make your plan, we would want to know how you're building in the assumptions.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah,
Other
and I would
questions?
say some detail on I know you had some projected savings there. You mentioned already on the electricity, which is great. And I think that makes sense because when budgets were being prepared a year ago, electricity costs were really high, and they've come down since then. But some detail on exactly how you get from point A to point B, I think would be helpful.
And then Kim, can you
Yes.
walk me through just the next steps in the process? I know how the legislation works. I know how our charter works with timing with the council. So the council's looking at the budget. You are all looking at the budget. The council has to approve the budget by May 2nd. This has been great feedback. Will you continue to provide feedback? And then if there's changes we make, I'm just trying to figure out, do we make the changes after the council votes on it on May 2nd? And then do we go back to the council? Like
Yes.
What are the steps?
Yes. Well, and also some of the steps are going to be dependent on when the MARB receives the information and they're comfortable with the budget. So I can say in the last few years, the budget would go back and forth. So from today, this is a first opportunity for you to present it. I like to make sure that as soon as it has been released, it gives the MARB members an opportunity to be able to provide feedback. OPM team will begin to get a list of those items for that they need in order to consider the budget and or recommendations of changes if you didn't fully fund something that really needs to be fully funded. Let's say you didn't include the police contractual increase and that needed to be done, and we identified that. We would want to make sure that that gets adjusted prior to the budget becoming complete. And so we will bring this budget forward again in April and look for some additional changes. Once the city council comes up with the budget, you have an opportunity to either I don't know if you make your changes before you go to city council or not. David, I don't know if you will recall that. I do recall that your mayor budget comes before us, and then you'll have a city council budget that they have approved, and there's differences. And then there's an adjustment line that gets included for MARB recommendations.
Yeah, my intention would be to take any recommendations you have between now and
Right.
when council votes and place them before council.
Right.
So that hopefully we can come to you it's May with a
Yes.
budget that already reflects your recommendations today. That would be what we're attempting to do over the next month.
Right. And the MARB has a timeline of which when we approve or we decline and ask for changes. In the past few years, we have declined the budget in the May meeting. And last year, there was a 30-day requirement that you made some tier 4 recommendations of inefficiencies that needed to be addressed in order to get your budget approved. So I'm not sure what will come of this this year, but that was one of the things that happened last year. Mr. Hamilton, Mr. White, I see that your hand is up.
Yes, historically, the other issue has been that we like to look at the budget in context with the 5-year plan.
Correct.
So it would be important and move things along if you could get that plan in, so that we could, in April, look at both of them together and give you the recommendations, because I think it's a very wise strategy on your part to try to incorporate the MARB things that you agree with into the budget that goes to the council, so you're not ping-ponging. But that 5-year plan is important, and I don't know if we said this last. Well, I don't think we said it last year, because there was that I'd like to see a 5-year plan that is geared toward your leaving MARB supervision. As wonderful and joyful as these meetings are, I think it would be good, and I think we may need some advice about what what is required, what is desirable. Essentially, we'd like to see, and I think you do too, that when you leave oversight, you're in good shape and aren't going to be aren't going to be back, and more importantly, that there's some good people here that if people go fishing at some point and there's a new bunch of people, you've got the things in place that the ship's going to keep going, and it looks like you're doing that. So I'd like to at least get those issues out there. I think we started it with the internal service funds, OPEB, pension, that kind of stuff. But I'm just wondering if there are other things, as Susan's kept our eyes on that water pollution thing that could blow up all your good work. So yeah, anyway, to the extent you could get that in front of us, that's going to help move the process.
Thank you for that, Mr. White. As you heard the mayor at the top of the presentation talk about the road to financial stability, and that's what happens beyond when we're no longer meeting like this. Certainly one of the milestones will be departing this wonderful company of friends. But yeah, that's definitely in our 5-year plan horizon, and we talk about it frequently.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Mr. White. If I may, just for my clarity, and I'm sorry that I'm having difficulty with the timelines of the process. So I've already submitted my budget to the council, and by charter, I can't change the budget, right? So I give it to the council. Only the council can change it, and then that updated budget will go to you. So any recommendations that you have I can't make, the council can make. And then that update will go to you. So I just wanted to clarify that part. And, you know, in hindsight, I don't know if maybe some other municipality that will be in this situation, you know, it's tough with the timing to prepare the budget, but it would have been great if we got your input before I submitted it to the council. It just doesn't work that way with timing, right? Because these are great recommendations and those that we want to consider. But once I submit it to council, I submit it to council. So as your recommendations come in, we will share those with the council. And Ronnie's on. He was the chair for many years, so I'm sure he, you know, is very familiar with the complications of the timeline. So that and to Mr. White's point, we have on a big board the criteria for exiting MARB, and we have our eye on that criteria, and we check off that criteria continually. And the audit being on time is one of them. The auditors are here today, and we, you know, have a 2-week meeting. Where do we stand? Where do we stand? Where do we stand? This is, you know, but we understand that we can't leave unless we demonstrate our future roadmap and our plan for stability. But I do think we're starting to overstay our welcome. Thank you all.
I think based on the timeline, Mayor, in commenting of you're stating difficulty of the process, but I do want you to not take the eye off the ball of the 5-year plan. And the 5-year plan is the roadmap for the next year. And so when you're building it, it's not just numbers to paper. It should have been really the first guidance of, okay, what did change during the year that I have to make adjustments to the 5-year plan? When I look at some of the things that are listed for FY26, it looks like there's might be some significant changes in the out years. And it is to make that a livable guide that you can live by, because otherwise you're going to take your eye off the ball and it's only going to be a short-term goal, when in order to get financially stable, it has to be a long-term goal. And making sure that the city can afford those things, not just a wish list, right? And one other comment, Ron, I do believe that in the prior years that these recommendations, David, since you've been on board, they were given to the city council, right, to take into consideration, and some of those were made ahead of time. Then after the city council made some changes, they came back to us one more time and we had some more adjustments in that year, if I have that right.
You certainly, I'll be a conduit for that, but yeah, it would make sense to communicate it to the city council, the mayor, myself, you know, any recommendations you have, and that'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah. Mr. White, sorry to keep you waiting. Unless, Ron, you had something else to comment on.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's fine. I do, which is that if you could share your whiteboard exit criteria with OPM so that we can be sure we're on the same page. You know, we've been, you know, you've gotten off to a good start. We're working cooperatively. I hate to throw a curveball, you know, down the road when you've just erased the last thing on your whiteboard. So if we could do that, so because I don't know that I don't know that I fully know the criteria for getting out of tier 4 and, you know, riding off into the sunset with a pile of cash. So good.
I think that's a great idea, because we don't want any surprises, you know, where we think we're tracking and then all of a sudden either something's changed in statute or, you know, we misunderstood something. So that's an excellent idea. We will, when we get a chance, write up our what we think and maybe where we think we stand against that criteria. So not only what is the criteria, but where do you think you stand against that criteria?
Absolutely. That, you know, I can't believe you don't have it memorized, Mr. White. I mean, we do.
I have it memorized.
Yeah,
well,
recite it.
one of the things that I would like to bring to people's attention, while there are exit triggers that are there, you have to remember what got you to the tier 4, and those are different triggers that brought you in, and making sure that those triggers have been met of what brought you in, not just that you're sound to depart. And I don't want to close eyes to this, but I will bring it to everybody's attention, is that the audit findings, and we're going to talk about that today, and the repeat audit findings is exorbitant and still showing that your financial infrastructure needs work. So that is one of those areas that is grueling.
I agree. We'll go through that. But unfortunately, that audit is from 2022, right? So when we get that audit and by June 30th of 2023, you are still going to see those repeat findings, because those are literally from last year. So
Understand.
While that's an important, yes, very important for us to look at and consider, we also have to know that audited findings are, we won't have this administrations and this audit until next year, right? So we'll keep
Correct.
tracking. We'll all keep working together.
In December, February 1st.
Any other questions regarding the budget, or shall we move on to the next agenda items? I think we're ready. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Mayor, thank you for your budget, and your team for the hard work that it goes into for building the budgets. The next item on the agenda is an update from the mayor on an executive summary on the great things that have been going on. Did we lose her? Here she is.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry, Kim, say that again.
Your executive summary is the next item to let us know some of the great things that are going on.
Oh, I think I did.
Okay.
Talking about personnel, yesterday we had our Blight press conference, which was great. It was picked up by the news, all the work that we're doing to clean up the city. I talked about some projects that we're working on, whether it's recycling or our grants projects. We have a lot of grants that we are in the process of not only applying, but that we got funding on, which is, we could use more grants people. Those are the two positions that are on our target, but we have a lot of grants for our sidewalks, our paving, our traffic lights. We have bike grants. We have flooding grants, we have coastal resiliency grants, and we have trailway grants that we are hoping are going to come to fruition. And we're working on recycling, and we're appraising some areas, and just moving along, doing our thing.
All right. Any questions? Then let's get an update on the fiscal year 22 audit findings, and followed by that, an update on the fiscal year 2023 audit, please. So I'm just going to do a quick overview. This was just sent to everybody last night, and to the MARB members anyways. And I know that the city has been working, and David, are you with us? Yeah, okay. The city has been working with Protiviti. We have asked Protiviti to take the lead on making sure that this document of audit findings is being reviewed, and that they validate that they're indeed closed, versus, we're just hearing a report out from the city, because that's important to know that somebody else has already pre-tested it and made sure that that control is really closed, so that when you do leave us, that it wasn't a short-term fix, it's a long-term fix, and that that you've got the great infrastructure and internal controls all in place, not just to check off the box for that one audit finding, because some of these have been they've been repeated for a number of years, and some of them have been here actually since you've been under oversight. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I know that a lot of progress has been made. And So we did hold a meeting with Protiviti yesterday. John, Mayor, are you on the call? I believe you are. John?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't you give a quick update, and then we're going to turn it over to David to give us some feedback on this.
Yes. I believe the audit findings from 22 that the city auditors provided to the city as well as the MARB, we forwarded on to Protiviti, and they created this matrix. Basically, half of the page relates to the items that were found by the auditors with PKF and so on. And then Protiviti, I believe, David, they've been meeting with you on occasion to go over some of the topics to see what the status is on working on it and so on. And I believe Protiviti might be assisting you in some of those. And then at the end of the last column relates to the observations that Protiviti has seen relating to these issues as they're being addressed. So this is the first time we've seen the document. It's going to be a working document, probably being updated for each of the future subcommittee meetings and so on. So again, it's sort of a roadmap, and we're just at the beginning of the process to resolve these issues.
Yeah, I will say I unfortunately have not had the time that I would like to spend with Protiviti on this, with other priorities and to the missing staff. But we did get a chance to go over this and just recently. So I do believe, of course, I haven't. When I got the document from John was the first time I actually had the document.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the computer across the desk for me until then. So forgive me if I don't know everything that's written on here, but we did have conversations.
Thank you.
So while you quickly look at it, it looks like we have 37 findings, and of which they're in various stages and phases. Some of these findings are federal audit findings, some are state audit findings, and some of them are management letter infrastructure processing, I would say, findings. And again, when I say they're in various stages, some of them are material weaknesses and some of them have significant deficiencies. So and you'll state in the third column over where it says the finding number, it'll state if it was a repeat audit finding. And let me so the first findings that go all the way down to probably before you get to number 10, which gets into the bank rec and says other matters, the first findings 1 through 8, those are material and significant deficiency findings, and they're federal and state related. So those warrant the highest level of attention to make sure that they get corrected. And as you move down, those are the management ones, so that when the auditor comes in and does their testing and they find that there are still some weaknesses within the testing, lack of controls and such, these are some of the things that still need to be fixed and or best practices. So what we had asked Protiviti to do in the status column was to let us know from a status perspective, the items that would be considered closed, and maybe it's self-reported from West Haven, and that we want Protiviti to validate. So when you see closed, like number 1, closed STS, that is a short-term solution. So while they may have a vacancy in sitting in procurement at this moment with the director, as they've repurposed the director to become the chief of staff, they have a short-term solution that's been put in play, but it's not a long-term solution. So it may be considered closed, but in the future, when the position is filled, we would want to make sure that those controls are built in within the procurement department to make sure that it doesn't remain as a short-term solution. Then you have items that are closed. So if you look at number 2, segregation of duties, while segregation of duties and it says the city, that there are 3 items within that. Now it is one finding, but as Protivity started to look through it, it looked like it was grouped within more than one. So it is helpful to identify what has been closed and what still needs some attention in the future as a short-term solution. And making sure that, like, for instance, in payroll, where there was a lot of conversation around segregation of duties and the HR area, then while they've built some safeguards, they're still, when the positions get filled, they need to be addressed for the long-term goal, not that we just keep that the short-term goal satisfies that need. And then you have some items here that are sitting here that are still open. So of the, I'm going to call them more of a task within the findings as an overall item for Protivity to, this now gives everybody a look at what needs to be managed. It shows that there's 4 that are solid closed. There are 3 that are closed in a short-term solution. There are 15 that are closed, but they're pending validation. So that's a grand total of 22, should those all really become closed. And when I say 22, I'm looking at it at the task level, not the 37, because if you look at it the way Protivity broke it out, it's a total of 55 items overall versus 37 because they broke it into further steps, okay? To make sure that West Haven doesn't get caught with, oh, you completed 2 parts of the process, but you didn't complete the 3rd one. It's good to break that out accordingly. And I think they did a good job of doing that. There's about 17 that are still in progress, and you have 16 open items that haven't probably been touched yet, or at least Protivity hasn't touched upon it working with the city. So that's a little bit of a further overview of the audit findings within the city. And I would stress, if at all possible, some of these items that do look like they're closed while you're being in the process of being tested, if some of those things have been completed through 2024, please have those conversations with your auditor to say, all right, Mayor, you didn't work there in the beginning of last fiscal year, but you did work there in the beginning of this year, and you've made some systemic changes in this year. And you would want to make sure you're having that conversation when they're doing testing, to focus on the things that have been changed since you have arrived, since things are very different than when the fiscal year started last year. That's what I would give for some advice here when you're talking with the auditor, so that everything doesn't come back and get in front of your face as being open again for 23, because I think a lot of progress has been made, and this oversight board has really forced some of this progress to be made, and because of the situation. So I think that you should get credit for some of those items.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking at, the list, and some of them I think we can close out. Some of them may be, I don't want to say easy fixes, like some, separate logons and things like those. But then there's some that are a heavier lift, but we got to focus on them. So this is a good chart to have, and we'll reconnect. We'll work on this, but then reconnect with Protivity to confirm what we've closed out.
Yeah, correct. Any questions from the MARB members, or the team, or OPM staff that I might have missed?
Just a comment, Kim. I doubt, knowing Joe, and he is our auditor. I don't think he's about to say that controls are in place for a following year if he hasn't audited it. So I wouldn't expect that in the 23 report. But we definitely need him in the loop. Let him see what we're doing.
Agree. Yeah. If they're auditing now is where my focus was going.
It might, but it's worthy of sharing it all with him, because maybe in their, they're not going to say they audited those changes because they're auditing a specific year, but it's good to show him, right? So maybe in the commentary or somewhere else, he'll be able to, I don't know, reference it. I don't know.
No question, sharing with him and getting his input, frankly. on here's what we've
Yeah.
done. So absolutely.
Any other comments? All right, I hear none. How about an update on the fiscal year 23? We did hear that the auditor is there. Oh, did you have your hand up, Tom?
Yeah, actually,
ahead.
I did have a comment, and that is, I think this is a great list and is a really nice roadmap. What I'd like to see as sort of a follow-up to this between OPM and David and whomever else is working on this in West Haven is a sort of a timeline attached of when we would expect completion of certainly the highest priority items, and ideally maybe all of the items. So that might be something to add to this, and so I'd like to see some kind of benchmark set down to say here in the next 3 months we're expecting to complete these 8 items or whatever it is, so that there's forward movement that we're kind of anticipating, as we march along. And again, I think this is a really tremendous list. It's a nice roadmap of things that need to be improved in the internal control area. So I think it's really useful.
Sounds good, Tom. We will ask for that to get updated. All right. David, I see that you're trying to have a little bite to eat, but
Shoot. I was turning my camera off before.
don't worry, it's on camera. Could you give us an update on where we stand with the fiscal year 23 audit? And thank you.
So they are here today. We have very few, in my opinion, outstanding items to get to them. Just finishing up our SPIDA, the new disclosure requirement on software leases, and one of my accruals for city employees. That file I'm struggling to get, and then ADP went down on us, so there was no way to get it the other day. So we're struggling to get that, but we should have that as soon as the report hits my desk. It doesn't take very long for me to get it into a form. So I think we're very close on that. The SPIDA has proven to be a difficult process, but it's always the hardest in the first year.
So of the open items list that they're looking for, if they're there today, I'm assuming they're doing field work today. Is there a timeline for them to complete their field work? And what is my question, number one? And number two, how far down the list do you think you are as far as their request for items? You just think you only have a few items left on the existing request list?
Yes.
Okay.
There's not, we're pulling everything we have. The biggest thing that I had outstanding was were the 2 things I mentioned.
Okay. And
I believe that Matt, I don't think is on, but his indication to me was that he had everything pulled together and was giving that to them today.
Kim, we ask for every 10 days, we ask Joe to give us an open item list, right? So he has what he's asked for, what he's gotten, and what's open, so that, if there's, everybody knows here it's important, but if there's any delays, in Board of Education, then we send it over to, Neil and say, hey, Neil, we're waiting on this. And, if there's a delay in a department, just so we have an idea of what is outstanding that he hasn't gotten.
very good. Any questions from the team? The board members? OPM staff. All right, good luck with that.
It
I know
certainly
it-
has been a pressure test between the audit and the budget at the same time, and it, as soon as we get done with this, I'm gonna start the next one, yeah.
I know you got the 5-year plan there,
Uh,
breathing. You have a lot of things going, and a lot of hires and training of new people. You have a lot going on. It's like drinking from the fire hose.
Same fire hose, different day.
Yes. I have no other business. If anyone has, oh, excuse me, I skipped over the open items list. I'm going to pass on that because that's a fault of me and my team that I didn't get an opportunity to take a look at that. I wanted to update it and make some changes to bring to this meeting. Simon and I got pulled yesterday working on a federal audit upload for the state of Connecticut. So we did not get to that, and so we'll keep that on the agenda for another meeting. So moving on to the other business, I don't have any other business, just the upcoming meetings that are ahead of us in the month of April, which is the full MARB meeting on April 11th, and then we do have another we have a scheduled subcommittee on the 30th. I think that, David, your goal is to have us with the 5-year plan for the full MARB, or is it for the subcommittee?
Would be aggressive to get it in well, it's possible for the full MARB, but you know, behind the scenes, that one of my recent hires is working on the templates and getting that all ready. And
Okay.
really the way the 5-year plan works is we put in the current year, and it's mostly formula driven from there. You know, there are some interfaces like the debt service, and that's going to be it'll take probably Bill a week at the moment. I'm giving him more time than he needs. It'll be a day or two. He's pretty quick with, you know, the debt service. So.
All right, then if you're able to provide that at full MARB, then that would be great.
I'll see what I see what we can do, and I do have a couple of days planned to be on vacation between now and then.
Oh, I don't think we're going to see it. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be honest.
No, I said it was aggressive, you know, and I meant it.
Okay, so we'll look for it by April 30th. And the sooner it's completed, you know, we can share those documents ahead of time.
Yep.
That's all I have, unless anybody else has anything to share or for the common good. All right, I can give you back a half an hour if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Who was
Yeah.
the
Take
second?
care.
I'm sorry. Was the second Stephen?
Tom was the second.
Tom? Okay,
Tom.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right.
Bye.
Have a good holiday weekend if it should be your holiday, and if not, I hope you get a long weekend as well. I am fortunate to be able to have a long weekend. So take care.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.